Giving every piece of my soul. Want to keep me yours. Giving every piece of my soul. Want to keep me
Do you own an iPhone but feel a little restricted with its camera capabilities? Naturally, we want to maximize the quality of our phone camera, and in order to do so, you'll find that using additional lenses and filters can be a real game changer. Freewell contacted us to see if we'd be interested in trying out some of their products, and we just couldn't resist. This is not a sponsored video, and Freewell have absolutely zero say in what we show or what we say. They also did not need to review the video for approval before posting. Anyway, let us have some fun and see what we can create. But before we start this video, hey, I'm Olive, your host here at Versus.com, and let's begin by taking a look at the different lenses you can play with. First, there's a case for the iPhone with magnetic mounts, which makes it super easy and quick to put the filters on and to take them off. But yes, that does mean you'd need to part with your favorite case whenever you're using the filters, so keep that in mind. It also features threaded lenses similar to those on a regular camera. Now let's explore what these can do for your content by taking a look at the extremely useful ND filter first.
So firstly, you're going to want to make sure that your settings are correct. And this means you need to shoot in manual mode. Now, obviously the iPhone doesn't have many options in the built-in camera app, so you will need to use a third-party camera app, something like the Blackmagic Cam, which is what we're using. Now, start off by setting your resolution to the highest possible, which in the case of the iPhone, that's 4K. Then you're going to want to set your frame rate, and here we want to do 24 frames per second because that will give you that really nice cinematic feel. Then you're going to want to set your ISO to the lowest possible because this way you will avoid any unnecessary noise. And finally, shutter speed. Shutter speed needs to be double the frame rate, so in this case we will set it to 1/48. Now, as you can see, the image is very overexposed, and here is where an ND filter comes in handy.
Here's a shot where you can see motion blur with the ND filter on and then without it on, but with the shutter speed cranked up. Now, it may be a little difficult to see what I mean at first, so let's slow the footage down. As you can see on the footage that has the filter on, there is clear motion blur visible due to the slower shutter speed. However, when we take the filter off and crank up the shutter speed, we may be getting a more true-to-life tone as the filter does give off a slightly green tint, but on the other hand, we don't have that nice motion blur as the entire motion is sharp and focused throughout. Next, we have the Anamorphic Lens, which adds character to your footage, and an Anamorphic Lens widens the field of view and adds cinematic flares.
So I'm going to be keeping the same settings here as I did with the ND filter, and now with Anamorphic lenses, they're actually pretty easy to put on. Again, it's magnetic, and all you got to do is put it onto the main lens, and you want it to be the main lens because it has the best quality. And you just turn it, it clicks, and it's very secure. Now, you will again have very overexposed video, so you will want to add a ND filter on top of the anamorphic lens, which will tame the exposure and give you this beautiful, beautiful result.
It's also important to remember that the lens must be leveled horizontally to avoid distortion. You should also disable the image stabilization to avoid the jello effect, and use a gimbal or tripod for stability. Here's a quick comparison, and as you can see, without the lens, the field of view is narrower, but with the anamorphic lens, the frame is wider, giving it a cinematic aspect ratio and a generally cool, unique effect to your video. It's also important to note that when you're shooting with an anamorphic lens, naturally the image will be distorted. So what we did was shoot in 10-bit directly in the Blackmagic Cam app and later de-squeeze the footage in post. Freewell also offers various other lenses such as a wide lens, and I was curious to see what the real difference is when using an extra lens compared to the general wide lens on the iPhone. The iPhone's main lens is 24mm, and as you can see, the Freewell lens is wider. However, we don't know the exact focal length. And of course, when it comes to the ultra-wide built-in lens on the iPhone, it's still naturally much wider than the Freewell wide lens as it's a 13mm lens. But it was definitely interesting to compare all three and see the differences. I'd say this lens would be useful if you'd like to have slightly wider framing, but want to avoid using ultra-wide as it can sometimes distort the results. And of course, it's also not the best quality lens on the phone, whereas the main camera is. Also, whenever you want to perhaps shoot higher resolution photos that have a wider frame, putting this lens on the main camera will give you better results than using the ultra-wide camera. This is because the main camera has a 48 megapixel sensor compared to the 12 megapixel sensor on the ultra-wide camera. There is also the option for a macro lens, which is pretty cool, and although you do have one already on the phone itself, this one does perform in a slightly different way. So let's take a look at some examples and see the differences. As you can see with the lens on, the results are much blurrier, and although it gives off a more cinematic feel, the built-in camera provides a sharper, more detailed image with a more true-to-life color tone. So overall, these accessories are for sure cool to have, but everything has its cons. What we mainly found is that apart from the variable ND filter, none of the other lenses are really all that necessary. So unless you're a content creator who mainly shoots with their phone, then you may find it a little inconvenient to always carry around so much stuff, and it kind of defeats the purpose of shooting with a phone. Also, the quality will always naturally decrease because you're technically shooting with a double lens, so it's important to note that you won't get that perfect quality like you would straight out of the main lens. We really hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it insightful. Make sure to leave your comments down below letting us know if you've ever tried out lenses like these and what do you think of them. And if you haven't, would you try them out? Make sure to also subscribe to be a part of our Versus.com community if you aren't already. And as always, give this video a big like if you enjoyed it, and check out the description for direct links to any of the products that were mentioned in this video. With that being said, we will see you in the next video, and until then, take care.